Differently.
Yeah.
Hi, Erin Snow. It's great to see you again. It's been a few weeks because of your schedule and Dr. Rob's schedule. It was like, so it's been a while.
It's been a minute. Here
Yes,
I am back in action.
and we appreciate that. So Erin, we have our first question. It's husband in good recovery after 2.5 years. Googled massage therapy near me last week. Said I didn't need his concerns about his back hurting, so I'm sorry. I didn't heed his concerns about his back hurting, so he took matters into his own hands. I book all appointments from a league to eye care. He never told me he needed a massage. He said I should have known. He booked with a man, so that's okay to him. I ended up finding a male massage therapist because the one he found fell through. Here I am a week later, look through Google history. He visited a female mobile massage link that he never disclosed. He said he didn't do it. That Google is wrong. Sounds like punishment to me and validated edging. Advice?
Mm. I think that when something smells off, it probably is. I think that you have to go with your intuition. And in all things, right? Like there's no confirmation that he acted out. There's no confirmation that he did something, and he's denying what is kind of in plain sight as obvious as not being real. That is gaslighting, by the way. Um, I say that with boundaries, right? You have to revisit, is this a boundary that I make all appointments? Or is that just something you've always done, right? Like, is it an assumption? Does it need more clarity? And then again, with boundaries, when something's happening, even if I don't have confirmation and when my internal system is signaling that something is off, I'm typically going to take a step back. So a step back from connection, a step back from maybe things that you're doing that would say, I feel really safe to connect with you. I feel really safe to, hang out and be casual and be funny with each other. When these things are happening, I don't feel safe. And therefore I need to take a step back, which is not about punishment. It's about feeling safe and your internal system aligning with what your actions are doing. So I mean, to me, this smells strange, and I have learned to trust my gut on those things. And I always say, you don't even have to. A lot of people are like, well, how will I know he's lying? Well, you don't have physical proof that he acted out, but what you do have proof of is this feels icky to me. And this feels icky to my safety inside. So I want to clarify the boundaries that either were not clear or were just an assumption before by saying, I would be comfortable booking all appointments from here on out. And given this situation, in the fact that I'm being told that what my eyes are physically seeing is not real, I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to trust what my gut says over what your faulty technology says here. So I would just take a step back to take care of yourself, because ultimately this is where we gaslight ourselves, is when we don't. And I would say, obviously, we don't want to be wrapped up in our whole life being surveilling and seeking and finding knowledge and all of that. But if your internal system is saying something is not right, and I know what this feeling is, I've felt this before, and I've trusted 2.5 years of really good recovery, and I haven't had this feeling, and now I have this feeling, something's not right. And I'm just choosing to trust my gut. I don't need confirmation or proof that you did something. I just don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about the way that you are minimizing my feelings around it. I don't feel good about the way that you're saying something that I'm looking at is not real. I don't like those behaviors around what's happening with us. I have felt like our communication has been better, and right now this doesn't feel good. So I'm going to just take a step back to take care of myself. That's where I'd be going with this one, because at the end of the day, there are more times than not that we deny that intuition because we've been hurt and we've been broken, and we want to believe the best in somebody, and you don't want to accuse somebody of something they didn't do and all of that. You don't have to accuse anybody of anything. I always rely on, I don't feel good. like, this just doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel like good, honest, open transparency, communication. Doesn't feel like you have empathy for maybe where my thought could have potentially come from, right? This was created in a system of betrayal. So I don't feel good about it. And I'm going to take a step back until you feel safer. That's me.
Yeah, and I'm starting at the top because you said he's in good recovery. And I'm like, did he reach out to his sponsor and say, hey, I'm considering seeing a massage therapist? And I haven't talked to my wife about this. And she always makes the appointments. And I'm pretty sure that this is not going to fly well. I mean, like that, the good recovery would be, like, I bet if you start looking, like you'll see, I bet your spidey sense is telling you things have been, a little neglected, a little on the light side. And how much better, instead of like him saying Google made a mistake. Yeah. I mean, when I type something in, I get information. I haven't had it where stuff is just magically flying into my accounts, but I mean, possibly could happen. But to me, it's more, like he says you should have known. Well, no, he should have come to you and told you before he did it, but at least
Right.
afterwards. And and the whole minimizing, instead of taking ownership of like, yes, I did this, I chose to do this, I can imagine how hurtful this behavior is to you after all of the behaviors I have done.
Yeah.
I need to step up my recovery because clearly I'm sliding into at least middle circle behavior. I don't know what his inner circle is, but yeah. So I'm going to start at the very top of like, I'm not buying good recovery. As for motivation, like, is it punishment or whatever? It to me, it's, I'm not doing my good recovery and I'm making really, really poor choices.
Yeah.
So the motivation behind it is more, I'm not thinking about anything other than, oh, my back is hurting. That's an excuse to go get a massage,
Well, and I didn't heed his concerns about his back hurting. So he's expecting, because you literally said he never told me he needed a massage. So he's like, read my mind. I'm complaining my back's hurting. This is what I want to do about it. And you're not heeding those concerns. I mean, everything about this to me is still in that phase of like, when you're doing something sneaky, a lot of these other behaviors come with it, which is like the gaslighting, the blaming, the defensiveness, the, oh, Google's acting up again, all of that stuff comes with it. So he's not helping himself if he didn't do anything. He's not helping himself by blaming you for him booking a massage without talking about it. I imagine massage parlors were part of your story, and even if not, we know it can be part of many of our clients' stories. So I just think all of the little seedy behaviors around it is what is making the actual action look worse than it even could be, because he's not taking ownership over any part of this. So yeah, I would just say it doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. I don't like the way that we're processing through this. Mm-mm.
Okay, so next question. Betrayed partner here. Partner flipping between considering themselves a sex addict, but then reverting to feeling that they have a sexual compulsive behaviors, and this doesn't mean that they're an addict. This has been a lifelong issue for him. What makes a sex addict a sex addict? Is there any reason you would avoid this term in the sense of recovery? So confused.
I I think that's a great question. So just to give some context, there is no diagnosis, right, called sex addiction. Currently in the DSM, we have to use like unspecified sexual behavior or sexual dysfunction with compulsive behaviors, right? But in the ICD-11, which is actually the international code of diagnosing, so many other people are getting with the program and we're very close. We use compulsive sexual behavior disorder, which is synonymous with, you guessed it, sex addiction. So yeah, he's saying that he's got a compulsive sexual behavior disorder. That is sex addiction. So I don't know what he's trying to argue here, but yeah, sex addiction is compulsive sexual behavior. That's it. I mean, it's compulsive sexual behavior without the ability. So making repeated attempts to stop a certain behavior and not being able to, making promises to yourself and breaking those, having negative consequences, right? And continuing the behavior in the face of negative consequences, including family issues or partner dysfunction, all of those things. So there's not a whole lot of argument here. I think he's trying to use words, but it's the same thing. So we use those two phrases synonymously in our world. We use the ICD-11 code. We use unspecified sexual dysfunction with compulsive behaviors, and we use sex addiction. I think a lot of clients, and Tammy and I both speak to all of our clients on the front end, the word is scary, right? I mean, for some, it's like, oh my God, then it's this like lifelong thing. What I try to say is, has it not already been a lifelong thing? You know, you talked about starting to masturbate at age 11, and here you are in your 50s, and we're still dealing with the same sense of, this is what I do when I'm uncomfortable. This is what I do when I'm bored. This is how I soothe myself. This is how I get back at my partner because I don't feel like I have a voice in my relationship. Like, all of these things added up is like, yeah, addiction is a scary word. You know, I think people conflate it with like substance use addiction. And it's like, well, yeah, it has very similar underpinnings, very similar steps to recovery. It's just put in a behavior versus a drug, you know? So anyways, I don't think, I think he's maybe trying to lessen his own shame or his own realization around what is required of him to move past this. That maybe if it's just compulsive behaviors and that sounds better than sex addiction, then it's not as bad, and therefore he doesn't have to do as much. I don't really know, but I do know when you're in active addiction still, all of this stuff sounds scary. And it all sounds like you're trying to take away the one thing from me that has been a constant in my life for a long time, and I don't know how to function without it. And so get your hands off my addiction, you know? So anyways, that's kind of what I hear what's going on in this scenario.
Yeah, and there is SCA, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. So there is a 12-step program, and he can go and say he's a sexual compulsive rather than an addict. But we talk all the time. It's like, you know, you go to AA and no one's using, I have a substance use disorder. You know, they're saying I'm an alcoholic. Yeah. I mean, we use the language, and I can, speaking for myself, you know, I was either crazy because, like Erin was saying, you know, I was doing these things for years, and I didn't stop even with negative consequences. So either like there was something really, really crazy going on, or when somebody said, you're a typical addict, and guess what? If you do these things, you don't have to suffer the consequences of that. Oh my gosh, how normalizing. Like, talk about the opposite of shame. It was like, oh my gosh, A, there's a community, B, there's hope, and C, there's help. You know, there's actually a plan. You can do these things. So I also feel like, yeah, there's some fear, shame, whatever. But as long as he can't decide what it is, then he doesn't really have to do anything about it. I mean, here you are, bless your heart, asking, you know, it's so confusing. And what, you know, what would we do for recovery? It's the same thing. Stop the problematic behaviors, have a plan for support, and address the underlying issues.
Yeah.
And so whatever word you want to use, it all comes down to the same thing. It's a problem. And unless and until you get help, and there is help, you know, you're going to continue to have the problem.
Yeah. I was going to say, Tam, you could also post the self-test as an option. You know, he can.
I will do that. And I did
kind of
post the World Health Organization ICD-11 diagnosis. We have a little blog on that, but I will also post the self-test. And we do use the term, you know, you may be struggling with something, but again, like with all due respect, people don't come to this. If, you know, if there's not some issues, you're not spending your Monday night, you know, on a webinar about, you know, sex addiction, intimacy disorder. You've got other things to do. So this ends up being, what do I need to do, you know, to get help? Because we're, you know, we're struggling. So this, we had a 25, this is a self-assessment. This is for sex, porn, and I'm going to use the term addiction. And there is a separate one on our homepage for co-occurring with substances. It was 25 questions, and we were finding people would stop taking it halfway through. And so we made it 8 questions. So you can do it. But it's just helpful to understand. And it's not a diagnosis. Like when guys come into our residential treatment program, this is not what they take. It's far more comprehensive because we're really trying to identify what the issues are that are underlying that, and, you know, so that we can have a treatment plan for them to be successful with recovery when they leave. So, but it's just a good, you know, it's a little like, hey, I might have an issue. So
yeah,
hopefully that's helpful.
There's other terms out there too, like A lot of therapists are using problematic sexual behavior. I mean, there's all kinds of terms that lead back to the same behaviors, which I think the compulsive sexual behavior disorder criteria would line up with any one of those, labels.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
at some point, like other than SCA, and there's so many meetings, like I've got, if you want information on 12 step, email me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. Scott and I did a whole webinar about 12 step navigating that,
It was really good.
for this. Thank you. Yeah. I was really proud of that one because I was like, it's so confusing to,
Mhm.
I mean, like with AA, if you got alcohol, you go to AA, easy. But this, there's a whole bunch of different ones. And, how do you pick?
SAA,
And
SA,
yeah,
SLAA,
SCA, SPAA,
SCA.
yeah, and the list goes on. So anyway, okay, so next question, Erin. I am 8 years into my marriage. 2 disclosures have happened now, most recent 2 weeks ago. Found out that my husband has been lying to me, his group, and his therapist for the past 3 years when I thought he was in recovery. We had issues with intimacy since getting married. We actually spent a lot of time together, and I wanted nothing more than to be close to him emotionally and intimately, waiting for our time to work on this over the last 3 years. I'm devastated at the realization that I don't think he is trying to get better and it's going to take a long time. I have to start thinking about myself. We have decided to split up and likely divorce. He keeps saying I deserve better, which annoys me. How do I tell people and explain what sex addiction is to our close family? How do I deal with the grief and of loss over what I thought we had? He is a good man, and I hate that he is letting this define him. Thank you for sending this. I am so sorry about the pain, and this is a lot to unpack, Erin.
Yeah, my heart breaks for you. I mean, first of all, I know all too close to home what this feels like. But I think in the very first stages that like the best thing you can do is take care of you. The rest kind of will unfold in terms of like what you have to do with the relationship, where you have to go. But that very first step is like, how do I get safe? What kind of support do I need? What kind of self-care stuff do I need? I mean, this is like digging deep, right? Because it's your whole world collided. I mean, and you have the original betrayal as kind of like a blueprint for what the trauma felt like the first time, going through it now again. And the sad part is the second time around is, you held out hope that things were getting better. And then to find out, that he's been lying to everybody, including the people trying to help him get better from this, it's really devastating. I would recommend, I don't know, Tammy, if we even have space left, but our Empowered Women Retreat is such a powerful way to get through some of this initial pain because you're in a whole group of women. This one's in August 15th to the 18th in Arizona. And I'm there, Tammy's there, and some of our amazing staff, including Tamara, she's our family specialist. It's like this opportunity to just let your guard down. We have found so many betrayed partners struggle with finding support because this is a hard thing to talk about. You don't want to, drag someone through the mud. You also don't know how to always explain it. Like you're asking, like, how do I even talk about this with somebody else? So being in a group of women that is like, we understand, we're here to support you. It comes with, the option to attend like a year-long group afterwards to support you through the growth and of healing from this. So I just think that if it's not our retreat, some kind of intensive is really helpful just to get away from everything, get around support and kind of get a chunk of that grieving done, because otherwise it feels like you just sort of carry it with you, drag yourself through the days and it hurts. All day hurts. Everything reminds you of it. You play the games in your head of like, woof, but could he change? Oh God, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot and it's painful. So I would say that would be a good start. We have a work group that's amazing. We have a lot of drop-in support groups also. Those are a little bit more like discussion based and support, but you're still around people that understand what it feels like, which is amazing. So I would say don't force yourself to tell anybody until you're ready. B, I would not force yourself to make any decisions while you're in the initial atomic bomb. You're 2 weeks in right now. And I wouldn't say I think we always come out very like indignant, and it's like I have to ride this anger to make a decision now because I know that my heart will change as it heals, and that's not always the case. So I just think giving yourself a little bit of time with like no contact, I would say block that out right now so that you can actually focus on what do I need to do so that I'm not spiraling out. You know, we hear betrayed partners that aren't eating, that aren't sleeping, that aren't, taking care of themselves. And we don't want you in that place. And there's no way you can make a good decision based on that or have a plan forward. So, first steps first is take care of you. Look at whatever is out there and decide what is the best option for you to get some good support around you. And then I think having some kind of daily structure is a really good way to get through grief. If that's like I wake up, I have a morning routine where I, journal, pray and meditate, and write like a gratitude list. You could do like what we call rage writing, where just fill pages with all of the stuff inside of you versus trying to put it somewhere on a shelf because it'll find you at an inopportune time and explode on someone you don't want it to. Um, and yeah, when you talk to someone that you are ready to share with, you can always use our resources, sometimes even our videos, or a past webinar, or one of Dr. Rob's videos, or it just explains something in a way that you might not be able to articulate yet. And it might be an easier way for them to understand what it is that you're seeing and healing. But wow, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear this. You're in the thick of it right now, and our heart is definitely with you.
So I put the resources. We've got the betrayed partner work group that starts
Yeah.
July 21st. That's not therapy or treatment, but it's like how do you have healthy boundaries? I mean, it's some very fundamental things, but it's also the women are there. They're supporting each other. So you'll have some peer support. Many of them choose to connect and contact each other between. But I also we have a few spots left for the Empowered Women's Retreat, and I put the link there. And you can always email me. One of the things I really keyed in on is well, so first of all, let's go with what do I say? You can always say more. You can't take it back. So you can always go, we're really, we're struggling right now. We're in a really rough patch, and I appreciate I just need to process through this, so that they are aware stuff is going on. If they're really digging and nosy, they're probably just being nosy, and this isn't their thing. Now, with people that are really safe, you can share, that we've had some betrayal and and yes, like Erin said, there's lots of resources, and so if there are non-judgmental people that can actually support you, great, that's what you need. But be careful. You can always tell more. You can't take it back. What I really, I hate that he's been lying. Unfortunately, right now, I shared with the other day with somebody. Right now, the record is 11 years. Somebody lied to their therapist for 11 years. They were going to their therapist, and I think gaslighting their spouse the entire time because I'm going to my therapist, and I said, what a waste. What a waste of time and money, but also what a waste of the opportunity to get help that really could have happened. Him using the old I'm so horrible, like how self-centered, you deserve better than me, like, oh, woe is me. No, like I can only imagine how painful this is for you, my partner, who was sitting here thinking that I was actually doing the work and hoping for a better us. And so to have it be that self-centered, that's the kind of shame that is self-centered and doesn't help anything. So, and guess what? We have a residential treatment program. Like that would be a viable option for him. 14, 21, or 28-day length of stay, because we work through all of that shame and refocus and get a plan so that, the continued lying to himself, because that's where it started, to you, to his therapist, to his group. We had one guy that had to go back to his group. He was getting chips for years and had to go back and painful, painful all the way around. But like, that's what recovery is. We do the painful stuff so that we are not lying to ourselves and everyone else. So there's opportunities for healing for you, for sure. And, I'm always hopeful for the addicts too, because man, it's such a better way to live if we choose it, but we got to actually do the work.
And the thing about residential is we've had a lot of clients that have lied to groups, therapists, their 12-step groups. And oftentimes spouses are like, why, what would prevent him from just lying to you guys? And I'll tell you that even now, I was just talking to some of our guys and saying that if you're lying in treatment, you're not going to make it through. And it's because there is a unity and a bond where these guys are beginning to form their first like real vulnerable connections with each other. And they're all dropping all this stuff. Like they're telling the truth. And it becomes really obvious really soon when someone is not, because they live together day in and day out. They're watching their patterns, they're watching what they're doing. And it becomes apparent pretty quickly when somebody is not with it, and they'll get confronted like on every level, and they don't make it through when they're lying. So uh, we've had guys that were in the very beginning, and they just saw all the honesty all around them and were like, what do I have to lose? There's no one going to judge me here. Like, I am in a place that is the safest place I will ever be to just get honest now. And they end up doing it. And they say it's like the freest they've ever been, because many of the real compulsive liars, like the ones that lie before they even take a conscious breath, they've been doing it since they were children. 90% of the time they were in circumstances where they could not be honest to protect themselves, or they had to always be very good. I have to be a good boy. I have to avoid conflict. I have to take care of somebody else. And so it's just a defense mechanism that is so ingrained and automatic that it comes out before. And then it's like the whole lie, the whole day is about grooming and manipulating and putting lies into place. And it just doesn't work when you're in treatment.
Okay, next question. I'm a betrayed wife of 36 years who found out about her husband's lifelong porn addiction in early April. He has not touched me in 15 years following years of ED. I feel like I'm losing my mind. What should my expectations be for getting my act together? I have made mistakes that I regret in my misery. I am in therapy, but I still feel unhinged after discovering I've been lied to for 38 years, the duration of our relationship.
Yeah, that's a tough, especially when years of ED that you're just thinking is some kind of, medical issue or performance issue. And really it's related to something he's been lying about and keeping secret. That's really painful. Yeah, I think for myself, I tell our betrayed partners that I have to really ask myself, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be when I wake up? Who do I want to be in my own skin? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to show up for as my, you know, as a mother to my kids? Who do I want to show up for as friends? And when I am bitter and enraged, I am not showing up as the woman I want to be. Screw whatever he's doing. It's not about him. And I will have moments where I am angry and I let it all out. But I want to be somebody that can still experience joy. I want to be somebody that can feel safe in my body. I want to be somebody that can make clear decisions moving forward. And that takes work on my side. Did I ask for this? Hell no, I did not ask for this. I did not ask, but here it is. I can't undo it. It can't be undone. And I have a choice in terms of the path I'm going to take out. I can choose to be prisoner to the anger and the way that feels inside of my central nervous system every day, and the trauma, or I can choose to get on a path where I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to begin to do the work that allows for me to be present again, because sleepless nights and all of the spinning and spiraling, none of that feels good to me. So I would say there's a lot, like we had just mentioned a bunch of resources, but I think, you got to start the process of therapy too, where you can actually begin working on this triggers every level of our security, of our attachment, of grief and shame, and the way like you said, I made several mistakes. Yeah, I mean, we come for ourselves too. It's like we're mad at them, and we also are like, God, but how could I be so stupid? Or how could I have done? And none of that's helpful. So I think getting a good therapist, getting a group, beginning to say, I had to ask myself, what makes me feel safe and in my body? And sometimes when I couldn't stop the spinning, like jumping in a cold shower or a cold pool, like something that shocks my central nervous system out of these spiraling. Um, I found a salt cave near me that was like, I feel happy in there. I feel grounded in there. It's like, it's good for inflammation and respiratory issues and whatever, but it's also this like beautiful place that has music and fountains and like that's a place that I go to find solitude and serenity away from everything else. So just figuring out what things can you do that bring you back home to you. Safety is within you. And when I feel fully safe inside of me, I'm like, nothing outside of me can shake that. I can feel the pain of the betrayal often. I allow myself to grieve. I allow myself to feel those feelings. I allow myself to be angry, but I don't want to live in that place because I'm missing out on my own life. And that's not a place that I think any one of us wants to be. So I am so sorry. I can't even fathom 38 years, your entire relationship. It really is an identity shift to think, what was my life? Who was this person? I didn't know any of this. So I just, yeah, I think you're at this place where you're like, how do I get myself back? What do I do? I don't know what's happening in the relationship or where that's headed. And honestly, you deserve to have you back no matter which choice you make. So that's where I would weigh in.
The only things I want to touch on is I feel like I'm losing my mind, and this stuff is crazy making. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're crazy. It's crazy making. So I want to validate, yes, all of it. But you've been lied to, gaslit for years. Also, I've made mistakes, and I'm like, I don't know a human being that hasn't. And so, like we're doing the best that we can, and you're given information that isn't true. And so you're navigating a space that, you wouldn't have, like, you did not know when you got into this relationship that this is what you're going to be dealing with, because otherwise you would have probably been really prepared, and you would have had the research done and everything else. Who knew? So here you are, you're doing the best that you can. So I would invite you to give yourself some grace and lots of self-care, just like Erin was talking about. It's like, do things that are nurturing to you so that you can show up for you as the person that you want to be. But yes, there's pain. I would love for you to come join us at the Empowered Women's Retreat. It is amazing and healing, and we really wrap ourselves around the women that are there. So, as do the other women. So, just an option. You can always reach out. Oh, drop-in group, Old Lady Posse. We now call it OLP, but it's tomorrow. That one is at 8:30 Pacific time, and that one's 90 minutes. Susan Anderson leads that one. And it was designed initially for people of a certain age, but lots of people go to it, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, that would be an available drop-in group tomorrow. Okay, both addict and wife here, we have always enjoyed watching TV together. Since the discovery, many moments in the shows we want to watch are triggers for both of us. Do you have suggestions for being able to manage these moments?
Yeah. First suggestion is move to a different activity altogether. Okay. So here's why I say that. Post discovery, there is a rupture in your intimacy. There is a need for trust building. Watching TV is a great way to like numb out and like, just veg out together, but it's also not really an active way to spend time with one another, to talk to one another. So try, I would say, taking a break from TV altogether. I mean, even if it's just 30 days and it's like, we're going to take an evening walk and then we're going to, I even went through a phase where we read a book together, but we took turns reading. I mean, you can go to a paint night, there's all kinds of things that you can do that I think would also have the dual effect of building back your communication, your ability to kind of be with one another. Go take a class of some sort. But when you get to the point, because obviously you're not going to avoid TV for the rest of your life. Tammy, what's the name of, there's a site that has like sex addict approved shows and movies, and
I will look for it. I don't remember.
it's
I will go
something
look for that.
dog, something, I can't remember. Maybe
I'm
if
looking it
anyone
up.
knows it, can you text or not text? Can you chat?
I will put it
Tammy?
in yeah, if I can find it.
Okay. But anyways, that's helpful because a lot of the shows, I mean, unless you're going to go like the Disney route, right? Or like go PG for a while, it's still the same thing, right? But a lot of shows, especially even on Netflix now, Netflix, HBO are straight up pornographic. Okay.
Yeah.
And any show that it has is meant for adults has adult content. And in this stage, you want to build intimacy and you can't avoid all triggers, but there's certain triggers that it's like, God, if we could unnecessarily take this out of our, the way we're trying to spend time together at night, it would be helpful. Now, when you do reach that time where it's like you also are adults, you're going to watch TV, and at times there's going to be adult content there that's going to trigger, as are triggers in the world, right? You could be driving down the street and there's a neon sign at a massage parlor, and that's a trigger. So we are responsible for at least regulating ourselves when we're triggered. Okay. It's not somebody else's job to regulate us in a trigger. However, once I am regulated, I'm going to bring that trigger to my partner, and I'm going to say, hey, and you could even, if it's in the moment, right? Hey, can we pause the TV show for a second? I need to just, I'm feeling triggered. I just need to calm myself down. And I want to talk to you about it. And there's times where you say, I need to just, it brought up old pain. I need to be able to share that with you. Are you open for that right now? And then being able to say, that scene brought me right back to D-Day. And it reminded me of this, this, and this. And what's important about those moments for addicts, you can be super supportive through those moments. They don't have to be personal attacks, and they don't have to be shame spirals. They can be, and I literally want you to imagine like putting out a container in front of you. You can be an emotional container for her emotions and just say, God, that, yes, I could see how that would be really painful. I'm here for it. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Right. And that helps her heal through those triggers. That actually uses those moments to create a bonding experience and create an emotionally corrective experience, and then to be able to move on from it. It's when addicts who often have a lot of underlying shame take a triggering moment and be like, well, it was just a TV show. Like, what the hell? I mean, what, are we not even supposed to watch TV anymore? I guess not. I guess we'll have to turn on Nickelodeon. Like, that is now I've taken a triggering moment and I've created a distrusting moment out of it. So I think triggers are an amazing opportunity to say, how can I support her through this? Right. I do say for betrayed partners, if you can regulate a little bit so that it's not coming out like a fire hose, but you can regulate and say, I want to share with you like what this feels like right now. Are you available for that? It sends the signal to the addict to like, okay, this is that container moment where I need to just hold the pain and soothe her and help to be present for this. Right. So that's where I go with all this. Bunch of different levels here. Like, maybe cut TV for a second while you're in this like healing phase where triggers like are not helpful. You will get to a place where they're everywhere. They're the people you see at the grocery store. They're everywhere. You can't avoid them. But if you know that TV specifically is a big trigger and you're trying to rebuild trust, that's my advice for now.
Well, and I love what you said, that it's not really a point of connection. You're
right.
So I love that you're reading to each other. We have people that like listen to a podcast and talk, and it doesn't even have to be our podcast about recovery. It could be, it could be on anything, I listen to murder mysteries all the time. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So, but anyway, and then I was thinking, because my husband and I, we have the Mexican train domino game, like on our table. Game. Yeah. And we have it up all the time, and we just leave it. And then we, come back to the next rounds or whatever. And that's fun, and it's interactive, and we're not just like sitting next to each other, watching TV, so lots more ways to be interactive. Reimagine what your life, can be, rather than just going to the same thing, that obviously is a problem in the moment. So, okay. Hi, PANSA here. Can you talk about arousal template? Oh, if an arousal template is created or discovered, if it is discovered, then how can we have it naturally as part of us to be unhealthy? You got that? So it's like, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I think I get it. So arousal templates are created and then discovered. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. So in other words, our templates are like blueprints that are overlaid later in life. So whether, I mean, Dr. Rob talks about, you know, a client who used to lay on his mother's feet when she was playing the piano, and later developed a foot fetish, right? Because he felt so close to her and had all these wonderful memories. And that's not going to be true of everyone that lays on their parents' feet, right? But there are certainly arousal template building moments in our childhood, whether that's being exposed to things a certain way, whether that's having certain types of intimacy, whether that's certain things that excited us as children, whatever it is. Yes. And the reason people say discovered is because that may not be openly obvious to you until you come across something and you're like, well, why am I so into this thing? Right. And I don't think that our arousal template has to be shamed for any reason, unless, of course, it's harmful to other people, or it includes non-consenting victims like children or others. But I don't think that it's necessarily unhealthy. It's what we do with it. So let me explain. We have a lot of clients that will come in and they basically want us to fix a fetish. And I'm like, we're not here to fix a fetish. Like, that fetish is very well and fixed part of who you are at this point. How are you going to live authentically with this part of your arousal? Are you able to, we call it ego dystonic. If they are like, I hate this part of myself and I want to get rid of it, right? So are you able to have a sex life that is healthy and integrated without this as part of your life, or not? Some would say, nope, it's one of the only ways. It's a, you know, it's one of the only ways I get aroused. Well, then we have to talk about, well, what's a way that you can live in your integrity with this arousal template with partners or partner that I am with? It is a struggle if what is unhealthy about it is when you're hiding it, lying about it, and doing it over here in the dark, right? So I don't think that there's any one of us that would say like your arousal template should be shamed, right? Your arousal template is unhealthy. Again, like I said, unless it is harming other people. It's how you use it. It's how you show up in your sexuality as an adult. Healthy sexuality should not include shame. It shouldn't include having to lie and hide myself from people that would normally otherwise be included in my in my intimacy. So yeah, I think, I hope that that covers. But I would say, yeah, it's created in our childhood, and then oftentimes we stumble across things that fall in line with that blueprint or that template. So yeah, um, sometimes we find things later in life that we never saw as children, but have some kind of root back there, right? So there may be adult content or adult activities that have a root to childhood that it's like, I have no idea where that came from. I mean, you don't have to go searching, but yeah, it's typically a pretty fixed part of us.
Okay, this one, like, I have feelings about. I'm the addict. I went to Sila 13 months ago. At Sila, I remembered an affair partner from 12 years ago. I did not tell my spouse about the affair partner until a few days ago. 13 months. So your spouse has been thinking, oh, we're doing this great recovery work. So understandably, this has blown up our relationship. I have a very deep fear to tell my spouse. I will be doing a polygraph to hopefully try to restart the trust process. Do you have any advice?
Oh, who are you and why are you doing this to me?
I know that, like,
Right,
it's
I'm the
like, what do we
addict.
tell people all the time?
I know
Don't lie on a formal therapeutic disclosure, you know?
at Sila, you remembered a brief affair partner from 12 years ago. I did not tell my spouse about this affair partner till a few days ago. Ooh, understandably, this has blown up our relationship. I had a very deep fear to tell my spouse. I will be doing polygraph to hopefully try to restart the trust process. Do you have any advice? Yeah, you're just gonna have to ride this one out. Yeah, I mean, just like kind of in the previous question, the hardest part, I think, betrayals that are, you know, out of the blue, that, you know, are painful and they're horrible and they destroy things. But there is something even more, I think, sinister and like sadistic about the ones that come after the person's gotten a lot of help and is like feigning that they're in recovery and all of that. It just, because it makes it that much more difficult to trust recovery. If you've never been in recovery before, right? And the betrayal still is horrible and it hurts, but at least if that person is going to get a lot of help now, it's like, okay, I can put a little bit of hope and stock in the fact that they're doing something different. But when you've been lying through the whole process of getting better, you do have a long road ahead in terms of how do you rebuild trust when you lied through the process of recovery. That is a lot harder to do. Um, my advice would just be don't ask for much right now. I think I hope that you at least told her in a way that was therapeutic versus like just dropping that on her. Um, and yeah, I think you're just going to have to take this slow and let her lead because at this point, I mean, obviously, whatever you haven't done in the last 13 months, you got to do and do it times 10, right? Really get back involved. Show up to your groups and talk about the truth, talk about what happened, take advice, suggestions from sponsors, from your recovery brothers. Yeah, it's a tough one. And yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah. So lesson to everyone else. Like this is, and I'm not shaming you. I'm just going like, oh my gosh, like you had a fear of telling your spouse, and look what happened. Had you told your spouse 13 months ago, that like that would be so different. So we talk all the time on formal therapeutic disclosures. Like you don't lie, you don't minimize. I mean, it's one of those things. I won't go on to my whole thing about polygraphs, but polygraphs measure stress, not truth. So your spouse, if you're anxious, you may fail even if you're taking a polygraph. But lots of people pass because they don't have any compunction about lying. So that it doesn't do what people think it's going to do, but everybody picks their own journey, and clearly you have. So I hope you're going to the alumni groups on our site. I hope you're telling your recovery peers, because you need a lot of support, because it would be really easy to throw in the towel. So you are in a vulnerable place. Please tell your, if she's willing to talk to you, please tell her there's support with us, for her as well. I'm devastated by this, because like this is the stuff that doesn't have to happen, and we really want to help people not to avoid these things. Anyway,
well, I think the hard
next,
part is
go ahead.
we don't do disclosure and treatment for a reason, right? Because you guys are separated, right? There's a partner at home that's usually taking care of a home and children and working and running the whole household while you're away getting 24/7 support. And so we don't do disclosure in treatment, but we refer to full therapeutic disclosure after, and we trust that you're going to do that, right? And oftentimes it's scheduled before you even leave and your partner's aware of it and all of that. But if it was something that, we trusted you to do, it's hard to hear that you didn't, but we are where we are. And I wish you the best of luck. The steps because you learned it with us, right? Just follow the path forward. Okay.
Dr. Erin, you got an upgrade. Now this is a great question. Is offending a part natural progression of a PA and SA? If yes, how can I be confident that my PA SA partner will not offend if the addiction worsens unbeknownst to me? We get this asked all the time. Well, and even like Erin, that question we had earlier of how do I tell people? Most people are not well educated in this area and automatically assume that offender and an addict are the same. So would you please unpack all that?
Yeah. First of all, I am not a doctor, so
I know, but
I
you
do
will be one of these
appreciate.
days.
I need my kiddos to all get into elementary school before I go pursue the PhD. But anyways, so no, okay. I will say that there's a few things here. So sex addict and sex offender are two different things. And in fact, we don't treat sex offenders at Seeking Integrity. They need a very specific type of program and type of work. They have different certifications to treat them, etc. And so, but what I will say is that it is not a natural progression of sex addiction The only piece that we do sometimes treat is that yes, in addiction, our behaviors can escalate. Not all, not all people do. Some people, it's like the same thing for years and years, but for a lot, their behaviors can escalate. Now, that does not mean it's escalating to an offending place, because I believe that some people, if you're not an offender, you're not an offender. That you're, no matter if that's not on your arousal template, if that's not part of what you do, then you're never going to arrive there. We do have some people who, after watching porn for so many years, right, that their moral compass, the moral injury of this, that is escalated to places that are more taboo, and they need basically more content that is, more illicit or whatever, to have the same dopamine response, right? So we will have people that have merged into or wandered into places where they are absolutely not the person that would go out and offend, but they have allowed their eyes to watch things that are so far from their moral compass because of the escalation over time and time and time. Now, that being said, yeah, again, those two words are just not synonymous. Their compulsive sexual behavior is not synonymous with somebody who offends against non-consenting victims. So I don't think you have to be concerned that because your porn addict, sex addict husband has those behaviors, that they're going to eventually become like a pedophile, or they're going to eventually, like, that just, those things are just not the same, and they're not even on the same train track. So I hope that is, unless you're seeing signs of offending in the actual acting out that they're doing. And for instance, voyeurism, exhibitionism, child pornography, all of those things have signs of non-consenting victims, correct? If you're seeing red flags flying up all over the place, I don't want to be the one to tell you that there could be acting out that is offending. But if you're not seeing that and they're watching porn, there's not going to be a natural progression of all addicts to end up as offenders. That's just, those two things are not the same.
And Erin's true. Like, if somebody calls and they have, offender behavior, there are residential programs that work with them, and we refer out. So it is very different, but unfortunately, again, in the general population, there is confusion about that. So we are very careful about the language we use.
Yeah.
Okay. The husband does not accept that there was anything wrong with going to therapeutic massage for years and lying that he was going to a man. I think this refers back to one of the previous questions. I wouldn't even care if he went to women, but why did he make up a whole story about going to Chris when he was never went to Chris? He even made stories up about him and told my dad he was also going to go to Chris. I cannot get over the lies, especially when it was plain clear in its email, booked multiple massages with 3 women over years. I feel like an idiot. So what I want to address is the I feel like an idiot. And also, like, if this is the same person that said he was in good recovery, this just negates any semblance of that. But all of the lies and stories, I mean, oh my goodness, like, the fantastical thinking, that's common for an addict in active addiction. So, but you're not an idiot. Like, you were trusting your partner who was supposedly on a good recovery path. But Erin, what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, this just has like lies. Yeah. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, whether or not he acted out or didn't act out, is you're lying and you're making elaborate schemes up and including other people in it. And it's like, what are you hiding? If you're not doing anything, why are you doing that? It's just, to me, don't feel like an idiot. There are so many women that I've come in contact with that, are really smart. I mean, look, I do this for a freaking living, and I did not know. And I did not feel like an idiot. You know why? Because trust for me was a choice. And when I gave trust to someone and they broke that trust, I'm not going to live my life walking around checking everybody's emails and looking at everybody's phone record. I'm not going to do that. So you're not an idiot. You trusted someone you love. And there's nothing wrong with that. He chose to take that and make a story out of it and lies out of it. I hope Chris was a great massage. Like, what the hell? Good Lord.
Yeah, what a mess. Okay, so the next question, and so what is the relapse rate after an SA partner has received treatment or gone through recovery programs? Get this question all the time, so I'm
Yeah.
going to take the first shot at it. I have a minor in stats. I love stats. I love math. And guess what? I'm an addict in recovery. It's the one place where I go, this is really, what is the person willing to do? Any program that says we have an X amount, recovery rate, like run, don't walk. That, what they're doing, they're calling the addicts, and the addicts are, that answer the phone, they're making a little score sheet, and guess what, addicts lie. So like, there's no validation. This is not something that you can really know. What I know for sure is that we have 2 alumni groups where guys are showing up every week, after they complete treatment, and they're doing the work. I remember when I was in treatment, they gave some stat about, those of us sitting in the group, and the odds were dismal. And you know what? Like, I hope all of the other people that were in my unit, that's what we called it back then, all made it, but you know what? This is, what am I willing to do for the guys that are willing to follow their recovery plan, the guys that are willing to do this. I do support sessions. I talked to somebody this weekend, and like, I don't do cartwheels. I said I would do cartwheels because he is going to his meetings. He is showing up. He's doing the work. He and his wife are making progress because he's doing the work. That's the statistic, is this person is choosing to be all in, so the thoughts, Erin?
Yeah. And so in substance use, like, and yes, addicts lie, but it's a little easier to at least formulate an idea, because abstinence is the goal, right? Like, not using that substance, right? Let's say you tested somebody every single week. Like, sex addiction, it's such a moving target. First of all, is that sobriety is defined differently by all of our clients. Their inner circles are different than somebody else's, right? And then you go from that to, you know, okay, so now so let's say we didn't do those inner circle behaviors, but healthy sexuality has to be like, abstinence is not the goal for our clients forever either. So it's just, statistically, it would be impossible to get an accurate number around how many people, but again, Tammy's right. The ones that actually walk out the aftercare plan and they actually do the work, they have a pretty, I mean, literally, they do well. They really do well. So it's a tough one. We do get that question a lot, and I always ask people why. And sometimes it's like, you want the assurity, right? Like the additional assurity that if it was a high number, then there was high hopes. But your person, right, is nobody else's person. They have their own mental health issues and trauma and life circumstances and stressors and family problems and all of the things that make them different than somebody else. And so even if you had, let's say we gave you an 80% of people, they go to treatment and they go to, SAA, 80% of them make it. That just is not all encompassing of being an assurance for anyone else, right? They have to walk the path.
So is this one of the nights you have to go right at time?
No, I have a couple minutes.
Okay. All right. Then I'll go with the next one. Okay. So the next question is, what advice do you have for someone attending their first individual therapy session post disclosure? Thank you so much, the betrayed partner. And to me, this would be like your therapist that helped you through I mean, like Debbie McCrae talks about this all the time on webinars. She's fantastic. But she's like, we have a whole plan. In fact, it hasn't been posted because Scott's on vacation, but she did a webinar on this topic, on formal therapeutic disclosure, last Friday, and it will be posted. And she even talked about what it would look like for the partner after that. So I promise it'll get posted, but it won't probably be till next week after Scott's back.
Well, so my
But
question
email
is,
me and I might be
maybe
able to do the back
disclosure
end.
was done with somebody else and you're going to your first individual therapy session with your therapist. I don't know. But because
Oh,
if it's your,
that's like so not in my brain. That's
I
not
know.
how we do it. So yeah,
Well,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So my thought is like, because if you're going to see your therapist after disclosure has like a beginning, middle, and end, right? It has, now what do we do after the actual disclosure piece? There's,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? So there are
yeah.
next
No, I
steps.
hear you. I like that. I was thinking literally the first session after we've had our formal therapeutic disclosure. So
Right.
So
So
you answer from your way, because that's probably more right. So
no, I don't even know. But
no, I know, but yeah.
let's just say you're going to see your therapist after um first session post disclosure, meaning D-Day.
Oh, like discovery.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I
Oh.
completely missed that.
Well, we could interpret
We
this
use
1,000
terms. Yeah.
different ways. We're out of our minds, people.
I know. Yeah.
All right. So, okay, I'm going to go with the assumption that you just got a bomb dropped on you and you're going to your first therapy session. So, good on you, first of all, for getting a therapist. I would highly recommend that it's somebody that understands this world a little bit, because we've had a lot of betrayed partners go and see a therapist that has used like very codependent language and said, well, what did you do? What was your part in this? Like, and that's just like the opposite of healing. So I think the first thing is take the temperature of the therapist. Do I feel comfortable here? Do I feel like they're competent to treat someone that's going through something like I'm going through right now? And you want to make sure you have a connection, but also that they have they're able to create some goals with you that really sound like goals that you want to achieve as you're moving forward. If the person is not like a CSAT or a CPPT or an APSAT, so somebody that's trained in this kind of line of work, betrayal, trauma, and sex addiction and all of that, you really want to be careful. That they don't see you as someone who is codependent or chose this partner, or what did you do as part of this cycle? That is so damaging and hurtful. And I would not wish that on you. And I've seen a lot of betrayed partners get further traumatized from those interactions. So that's my advice on your first individual therapy session. And I really hope that it's a wonderful person. And if you don't find that it's a wonderful person, reach out to Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, because she has we know people all over the country, all over the world that are amazing at helping people heal.
Yes, and that I think that was a good catch. I have a feeling it was discovery more than
Sure.
yeah. Discovery and disclosure get well, and some people will use disclosure of like he came and bombed me with the information, and that's yeah, but that's still so good catch. We're out of time. This will get posted. Email me at the email address Erin said. There's help. There's hope. Thank you guys for joining us. And Erin, thank you. She'll be back in 2 weeks. Dr. Rob will be back next week. So
Have a
bye,
great night,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.